Okay, we are streaming live, I believe. Okay, let's check here the chat room. We were this week also on streaming live on Facebook, and that went well, although the audio quality of Facebook, that's not as good as on YouTube. That's why I mostly stream on YouTube. And also the reason is that, or another reason is that in the playlist, you always can watch back the live stream. So today we are talking about Blue, because Blue is a part of the Explorer 6 bundle, and of course it's already out a longer time, and this month we call it Blue 2 months. And yeah, I on Facebook already showed some things about Blue, the power of Blue. So this is, for instance, the FM synthesis E-piano. Very spacey. It's called Silk Keys. You can find it in the bank keyboard sounds. And yeah, what I told also on Facebook is the cool thing about Bluetooth is that it combines the best of FM synthesis together with subtractive synthesis. And in Bluetooth, we added a range of very good samples which are great for synth sounds. So for instance, this E-piano, most likely has a, okay, oh no, this one is pure FM. Okay, wrong wave notes played. The high ping is done using the FM synthesis. So here you see, this one uses only 3 oscillators. All are sinus waveform. And if you look at Blue, it has 6 oscillators, which are here. It has 2 filters, which you can use, which is not used in this batch. And down here, you have a multi-page LCD type of thing. And the envelopes are, because with FM synthesis, you need envelopes for each oscillator. Down here, and of course we have the main envelope, which is down here also copied over. So if I change here the decay, you can change it. See that it changes also down here. And so what happens with FM synthesis, and when we have a bit more people, we can maybe talk a little in a few little things what you can do with FM synthesis without going too deep, and what you can do yourself. So if you see, it starts with a sinus waveform, and there is a chorus active. Up here we can have the FX section, and we can bypass all, so that we have the pure sound without the FX. And if you go to the algorithm, you can see that oscillator F goes out, so it goes out, and the destination you can select here. In this case, it is not filter A, B, or C. It simply goes directly into FXA. So there are many routing options for each oscillator. In case it is going to an output, which you see here, it goes out, F goes out. So I also could send it to a filter, but in this case it goes directly into FXA. Now going here to the FX, you see it's in serial. So first it gets a chorus and then a high quality reverb. So if I bypass it, you can hear the chorus and also the reverb. Okay, bypass again, I go back. So what happens now, this is pure sinus waveform. And this one is modulated by E, and E, when I put it on, you can hear it. And you see, it's pretty high how it sounds. And that's on purpose, because with the E-piano, you want to have these high sounds, which is more like hitting a hammering on the metal plates, which you would have in, for instance, a Rhodes or a Wurlitzer. So this is tuned up very high. I can go down. So, and if you listen here, just by changing the tuning, I suddenly have a marimba. So the tuning from the modulating oscillator is very important. Yeah, my keyboard clacking, I cannot help that. Maybe I need to do sometimes a microphone stand, which is separated from my keyboard setup here. So you can see by changing the tuning, I really on purpose put it very high. And of course, the volume also has influence. So how much oscillator E modulates F? It's too hard, so you need to find the right balance. And then there is oscillator D, which is modulating again the E oscillator. So D modulates E and E modulates F, and that makes, of course, FM synthesis more complex, because sometimes you don't know what the results will be. So it's also a trial and error. So when I go to the envelopes here, you see that D has it's very short. I make E a bit longer. So this is the volume envelope of E, and D is this. It's very minimal what you can hear. So sometimes it's in the... Yeah, I want to increase the volume. So that's the problem with FM synthesis, is that you can go wrong very fast. So with FM synthesis, the first rule is, when it sounds nice, stop. Because then you already have an interesting sound. So going back here to the original, you see I click the original and you see that, yeah, oh no, C was modulating. Okay, sorry guys, C was modulating. Oh, not modulating, C was an extra tone here. Aha, so sorry, I messed up. So in this setup, we have and this one is only doing a bit of extra body. So essentially this Ting piano, this very sweet, it's done simply by using one oscillator modulating oscillator F. So without this, and now I put on the E, I have this little ting in this sound. So going back to the envelope, so E is modulating this F, E is modulating F, and you see, here's the envelope. And when I make it too long, it doesn't sound right anymore. So it should be very short and percussive. Of course, the FX with the chorus and the reverb finishes off. The sound is really, so when I play here a few chords, it makes it much better. That was me with the jazz chord up here. Sorry, doing too much at the same time. Talking and playing music, it's not a good thing for me. Unlike some female musicians, they can do far much one thing at once. It seems that man can only do one thing at once. So this is an example of a typical FM sound, and yet the nice thing is that you can combine this with a sample, with the again a wrong note, sorry guys, I don't have my musical day today. So here you have what we just had, this piano with this ping, and then combined with one of the Vox samples which is inside Bluetooth. So that really makes the combination great. So here you have this voice, and of course, if you hear this sound and you think, okay, let's make it a bit different, just check what oscillators are working. And okay, you see the waveform, and you can say, okay, let's make this voice a bit louder, and then you open the volume. So this is an example of what you can do. I think maybe you have more. But it's also typical. And here you see more oscillators are used, and only in a FM setup. So you always would think it's a kind of Wurlitzer sound, but this is purely done synthesis. And let me shut down the oscillators. B modulate C. So this makes this part of the sound, and the other part is done by D, E, and F. So here you see that's an algorithm where in totally 5 oscillators are used. So this is how it builds up. Sinus, second oscillator, third oscillator, and then you have the this one. So this is how this E-piano does how works. And you see here in the oscillators, you see already some velocity. So the velocities of the modulating oscillators are really active. And you see in F, the velocity is down because that F goes to an output. So F is already controlled by the overall velocity, which is arranged here in the M section. So this is the overall velocity on your volume. And if I would bring down now the velocity of the oscillators which are modulating, I don't have an expression anymore. So it's each time the same. So I really need to open the oscillator B velocity, and of course this all to your own taste. The oscillators are D and the oscillator E. This is the way you get the expression. Get the distorted FM sounds. That's a good question. No, it depends how you use FM. So essentially, most of the time, the sinus waveform is the best one to use. If you use it on a other waveform, it's tricky. It's tricky. For some reason, the sinus waveform, if you're really doing FM synthesis, is the best option. So what I did ahead of the streaming was just combining a few of the FM sounds together with the other sounds. So that's not really a music piece, not really a piece of music, but just to show you how diverse Bluetooth is in terms of sound. So there's a sound with Prisma which combines Bluetooth. I want to go back to that in a second. And the other ones are, although you see here Rocket, but it's not Rocket. This all is blue except for the drums, what you can hear playing now. So I'm going to shut my microphone down and you can listen. So here you hear a whole bunch of sounds which using Bluetooth. So here you see Predator 2, but Bluetooth is selected. So when I open here, you hear this bass, dog bass, typical, very punchy, which is cool from the FM synthesis. We really want to make some punchy basses. Here you see that A is a square waveform, and here is also some FM modulations. It's really a combination of both worlds, this dog bass. So I can open the filter. Okay, and the other part is going to F, and here you can see that the square wave is modulated. So if somebody had the question, so now I'm having sinus waveform modulated. So if I put off the modulation, you can hear that it's only now E modulates and even C. So C has a triangle, modulates E. D is inactive for some reason, but then E modulates again F. And in this preset, I use not the sinus waveform, but the square. And that sounds distorted already. And then on top we have oscillator A, which is doing a traditional square waveform. So this is like combining a DX7 with a Uno 6 or 6D. So the original preset is. You can hear it's very nice, very punchy. It's there in the music. So if I play here this part. So this is what I used. Then there was, of course, punch. And somebody had a question about drifting. Yeah, drifting is something which is added in Bluetooth, which is not originally part of the original FM synthesis. So if you go to DX7, it doesn't have any drifting. And drifting makes that the sounds indeed go a bit less tight, a bit more moving. And in some cases, this is very interesting. So I will come back to that subject, but let me first play a few other sounds, which I did in this piece, because here you can see if you have Bluetooth, you also can use Prisma, and Prisma allows you to stack three, for instance, three, even four Bluetooth together. And this is a very nice pad. Of course, keep in mind that this is the same as having 3 tracks with Bluetooth. So it doesn't, and if you use Prisma with 3 times blue inside of it, it still uses the same CPU as you would have 3 tracks with 3 times blue inside of it. But anyhow, it's cool because you can stack sounds together. So this is a very big pad sound. So this is really cool about Prisma, is that you can stack some great sounds together. So that I use. I don't want to go too deep inside of it. Then we had this one, which I use for example, and this was also a bit of more distorted sound of using FM synthesis. And you can see here still the sinus waveforms are used, but because of the increase of the volume, it gets this FM type distortion. And I use the XY here. You see the target is the volume of C, volume of D, and E. And so this movement here is used. And then I can. So you can use the XY also to control the volumes of the oscillators, which are then in an FM setup. So here you can see, I can even mute it. So mute. Okay, let's see if there is more active here. Let's mute everything. Oh, also this one. So now it's the static sound. So what changes is the volume from C, volume on D, volume on E, and even combined with the filter. because if you go to the patch, you can see there's a low pass filter active. So the XY is controlled for doing weird FM stuff, and that's the cool thing about Bluetooth. It's so deep, and some new features, some new sounds are really on the next page, and up to the user in using this in a creative way. So you can see here the XY has a so when I added precision, it goes visual. I can say, okay, record it. I can also record it. Okay, play back. The amount of points I can select here, 64. And of course, with 8 points, it's a bit easier to control. You can make it MIDI tempo based. Now it's set to 1 bar, so the whole movement is 1 bar. The mode is polyphonic, which means if I hit the second note, it starts its own movement. But the sound is monophonic, so that doesn't make sense. I need to have polyphonic sound. First note. So, and then this you can, there are other space quantize, time quantize. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, then we have, you see down here is speed control, so you can have the pitch band. I need to shut it down here from the normal pitch band, and you can use the pitch band to control the speed. Okay, I'm checking. Yeah, drifting. Does spread work in FM synthesis? Yeah. Let me see. Let me show it to you. So this is just one of the other sound which was inside of it. So I'm looking at the session here on the laptop for the questions. So you see, this is a very different sound. Then we had this sound, which was more like analog sounding, which was this this. Let me see. I play it from here. I think it's this one. This one. Does this sound? It's from the dubstep one bank, the Nuts bass. It's using a square waveform and a triangle, so only 2 oscillators are used. Bandpass filter, and the filters are high quality. So this is one of these sounds. So you see, it's very diverse, very different. It can sound very different each time. There was another intro sound which I used, which is very spacey. Let's play it solo. So this preset is really mild pet type of thing, but also here we have the filter used. It uses a bit of FM synthesis if I'm not wrong. Yeah, you see, D modulates F. So if I shut down F, you only hear a choir, which is very filtered because I open the filter here. And then I add F. So I have the original one again fully. So this one is from Patch 03, Lunar Beyond, it is called. That I played. Then there was also very stereo sound using the XY. You see here is also the movement is one line, and it controls the volume of one oscillator, and I think also one other oscillator, so mellow. So the XY is very controllable, so it plays here, so when I play it. So pet sounds, that kind of material. But also, you see this one, and that is a good example. If you go to this sound, okay, let's open this. So this is just not a piece of music, but just to show how diverse and what you all can do with the Blue synthesizer. This is a patch which is originally a bit edited. So when you hear it now, so you hear it uses the arpeggiator, but originally this sound was different. So of course now it's saved with this, so I need to reload it again. Let's see if that works. It's to have the original one, 82. So this was the original one. Okay, wrong, clicking wrongly. So, and that's what I want to tell you, is that if you have Bluetooth and you use it, well, sometimes it's just a little change in some of the parameters to get your own sound. So what I did here, and that's also the reason why the amp section is always visible, I simply, with this preset, I changed the decay and the release to make it a bit shorter, to make it fit in the groove of the sequence. So let me do this again for you while playing this. So essentially I had this preset, I had this sequence, and then I simply changed the decay and release. I will do this now again. So you see, a little change makes the sound suddenly useful. I mean, in one other song, maybe it should be longer, but in this song, it should be shorter. That's also the reason why we add in Bluetooth the amp section envelope always visible, even if you are here in the manager. So if I would pick here a different preset, okay, let's pick just one of them. Could also work. So that's already one thing I want to give to you, is that if you work with Bluetooth, this up here is very important. If you have arpeggiator sounds or pad sounds, to tweak it a little bit to make it a bit more nicer in your piece of music. So I even could here take another preset. Okay, now the sequence is gone. Okay, play it again. sometimes when you hear a sound solo, it's sometimes not that impressive, but together with the other things, it makes a combination. So I'll keep it this one as it is. Yeah, and then we had this one, which is a totally different sound. One of the Jamali Transition sound. Let's see how it kicks in. Here it was. And the arpeggiator plays, but you see there's also a chord playing. So if I put this off, I have one note, but he played a chord. So always take the C3 as root. Then you really do learn, play a chord. Let go, and then you have play. So yeah, it's creativity. It's of course a synthesizer with many controls, but so yeah, chord is a special mode. We did it a bit different in Predator 2. In Predator 2, you really can manually tune it with Bluetooth and, for instance, also with, for instance, Blade. You need to play this chord. And, of course, you need to play this chord in the root key C, because if you play a totally different chord, then, yeah, it's already transposed, and that's, of course, a bit harder in your music. So, okay, this was one of the other sounds. Then we had this bass. I think we had it all, what we used in this short thing of, and yeah, I played again. Now it's a bit changed, I think. I have to, because I tweaked the sounds a bit. So just a few things played, and I noticed that I forgot one thing, which is the electric guitar from the muted guitar from Bluetooth, which is FM synthesis. So here another example in FM synthesis. You see A, B, and C are used in this one. The arpeggiator or sequencer is playing. This is the sequencer. So if I shut down, you have only a sinus waveform. And also here we have the spread feature. But if you then modulate it, makes it a bit fuzzy. But it's possible. So, and now you really can hear and how this works with FM synthesis. So if you take this sound, starts with a sinus, algorithm, you see, E, I go here to the envelope, E modulates, B modulates C. So I put it on, and I have it on the same pitch, and the same pitch is for me the trick to do more guitar type stuff. So the first oscillator modulating the other oscillator, I found out just by trying it out, okay, this sounds a bit like a guitar type of thing. So the pitch is the same as the pitch of the oscillator, which is modulated. You can also here can see the destination, oscillator C, and of course E has its own envelope, and there you need to tweak it. Okay, and I see. Oh, I'm wrong. I'm in the wrong oscillator. Stupid me. B I need to have, of course. Here's B. And here I need to find. Okay, that this is the sweet spot, also with sustain. And you see this oscillator B, the amount is fully open. If I don't do this, it's maximum. There's no envelope working on oscillator B. So I need to open this amount to have oscillator B, the envelope working. Now then, for a guitar, I miss a bit of percussive, the attack of it. So the algorithm also is that A also modulates B, and let's go to A. And you see, then the sound is suddenly finished. But this one uses a very different pitch. So in this one, it's tuned up. And then it's a matter of finding the right tuning and the right volume. So now it's gone. Now it's the guitar gone. It's the high. So this is the way I created this sound. So it's a matter of a bit of trial error. You modulate one oscillator with another. You think, okay, this is getting close to this. And of course, the volumes are very important. Too hard, it's not okay. And adding this to it. So from that point, FM synthesis is learning it by hearing. So if the sound is good, stay there. Okay, I go now to, and I could make it longer. I can use the velocity here. Of course, you hear my keyboard clacking. So also this sound, what we use is a FM synthesis sound. And of course, it doesn't make sense in Bluetooth to make in this kind of setup it sound like a analog style bass sound, because that you can do already by simply using Bluetooth with a saw waveform and simply using one of the good filters. What Bluetooth is about is using the cool thing about FM synthesis, which is unique for it. I mean, it doesn't make sense to try and make a Minimo style bass in Bluetooth by trying to do this with the FM synthesis. To me, this is nonsense. Use the FM synthesis for the things which is strong at. So going back to the chat room, we were talking about using spread and also drifting. So drifting is definitely a part of which makes, of course, Bluetooth different from the original FM synthesis. So here we have Blue. By the way, we have here a bank which is called, go down, bank 89 examples. And here you see some basic examples. So pulse width modulation, oscillator 1 with wave shaping. For the guys who don't know that it is the case, but we also have wave shaping in Bluetooth. You open here the shape, and down here you also have wave shaping. So it's pretty much heavily powered. Okay, so I will go back on the FM synthesis and the questions we had in the chat room. So here we have the basic sound. A good example, you see the envelope here, the algorithm does say C, D, E, and F are active. So C, D, and E all modulate F. So we have all kind of algorithms what you can do. And I must admit that I'm very often just work organically with it. Just check out how things work out. Because mainly with FM synthesis, that's my opinion, it's good for percussive type of sounds. Of course, you can also do things like this. So if I have here oscillator E, make a kind of growl, typical growl thing. Okay, so this is the oscillator D. And in this case, well, drifting is 0, but we could use drifting here, so then the oscillators are more swirly. Keeps on moving more. So for these kind of textures, so this is sounding very dry. And by changing the now this is typically FM synthesis. Just play around, and for instance, you notice if you do, you can use ratio, but I often use this semitone here. Is sometimes when you stay on 12 or on 7 on a fifth, that it's a bit more useful. And of course, yeah, this is typically, and then what I find cool, let's give it a try. And you put in some oh no, that's the wrong oscillator. Oscillator B. Oscillator B has an output. Of course, I can do this. Percussive samples. Just picking one of the tune percussion frame drum. And I go deep. Frame drum combined with FM. Yes, indeed. The audio engine asks, the drifting is the same as an analog oscillator which drifts. For the bass for the drifting is done on the Minimoog, which I think has a very nice drifting. It's very minimal, but if you have good ears, you can hear it. And of course, if you want to stick definitely to a typical FM sound, you need to put the drifting off. So yeah, the cool thing is here that... So now I'm combining two types of things, and I could say, okay, go oscillator F, go to filter A, and I use there a vowel filter. Of course, this filter has its own envelope. Even could send the frame drum into the filter. Loses too much energy, so I keep that on. It's a bit weird sound now, so it's a bit too dry for my taste. I would say, okay, let's see if we can make it a bit fuller. spread is very strange if you use FM synthesis. So I would do, to make this really a ugly science fiction sound, I would say, okay, let's make it a bit. Use the serial range, tape chorus, stereo delay. Nice. Maybe I should save this one. Save preset as. Oh, frame FM I call it. If you like it, I could upload it as a single preset. By the way, I have a video on the playlist from Bluetooth about presets and banks, how to work with them, because it's different from our newer releases. Frame FM, there it is. Yeah, it's from Doctor Who. Yeah, this is a kind of percussion instrument. Doctor Who playing the frame drum in the TARDIS. Or is it TARDIS? I don't know. So back to this bank, so with the examples, and we mentioned, of course, the FM synthesis. Let's go back to it. Algorithm. Make it easy. I make B on C. I shut down the other ones to show you what happens if you use spread. Spread in Bluetooth means that this oscillator becomes 3 oscillators, if I'm not wrong. One tunes to down, one stays in the middle, and one tunes up. So you got essentially, if you open spread, 3 oscillators active. Only this is a bit more CPU friendly done than having 3 separate oscillators, but it's detuning. So if I use spread now, essentially oscillator B is modulating oscillator C with 3 oscillators, each in a different pitch. You get this result. So it's from a straight sound. Okay, let's go to the envelope and have the oscillator be constant modulating. So it's a bit like a vowel. And then I open the drift. So it's a bit strange on FM. And here you can see also, okay, this one is a bit high. Okay, sorry guys. So this is a normal tune pitch. Double click, by the way, goes to the default setting. So this is better. Okay, now I modulate. And open the spread. Very strange. It's not. Makes it a bit weird. So, and by the way, it's not only FM synthesis, which is essentially not really the frequency modulation, but essentially it's the phase modulation. Casio had the right name. Casio called it phase modulation. That's essentially also what it is. Phase modulation, and that's what John told me. He said phase modulation is more CPU friendly than frequency modulation, and also sounds different. So if you have frequency modulation, it's different. So it essentially oscillator B does on oscillator C phase modulation. Typically, isn't it? So, and then, okay. And ring modulation I also can do. It's a bit weirder. Is there even more than this? No. Sync to A, oscillator sync. So, and you also can hear now, if I take a different waveform from the sinus, that is totally different. Saw waveform. And then, okay, very easy gets distorted. Only the square waveform can be nice, and there's one lead sound which I can play to you, which is essentially sounds like a distortion guitar, but it's FM's modulation on the square. So the square wave, and maybe let's do a. Sounds like by the first guitar. Yeah, it was the TARDIS. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I saw all the Doctor Who's on Netflix. Who doesn't? It's quite funny how they do this. Yeah, the CZ1 phase distortion, but essentially it's the same concept as the Yamaha DX7. So there they call it FM synthesis, but essentially it's the phase modulation. So here you see if you use this modulation on a different waveform, it's not always working out well. So on the sinus, on the square, on the saw, not that nice. On the square it's nice, because it gives the impression of a kind of distortion guitar. And then of course you have all the other type of waveforms. Of course you can experiment. This one is not bad. Rest, and now with, this is an interesting one. You see how much you volume it. So what I suggest, simply go to the example bank and just fiddle around with the volume and the pitch and then the envelopes of the oscillators and see what happens. Phase needs multi-ops. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, by the way, the multi-envelopes are here. So if you want to use multi-envelopes, you can add here the points. Presets are here, 8 sections, and you can have a multi-point envelopes. The reason why we not made the all the envelopes multi-point, because I'm very organic in terms of doing sounds. So this is a multi-envelope, which you also could set on oscillator B, because if you want to create musical sounds, in most cases the basic envelope, attack, decay, sustain and release, and maybe the fade is enough. It's good enough. So for 99% of the sounds you are using this setup, and to have then a very complex envelope for something which you just rarely used, that's the reason why we did not do this. Maybe we make in the combination of Blue 2 the option that you have a button here, basic envelope or multi-envelope. So here the multi-envelope, you see it, you can have all kind of things combining it, tempo sync, you can loop it. But of course, the multi-envelope you need to address. So here I can say modulators, multi-envelope A, control the oscillator B in this case. Not sure. I have volume B and modulation volume B. I think modulation volume B. Okay, and then of course I need to shut down this envelope, which is normally on oscillator B. So amount 0. So this envelope here is not controlling B anymore. It's now controlled by this multi-envelope. Of course, the amount I can increase. It's 100%. Let's see if maybe, because we have two types of. Okay, I need to have this one, the second one. Yeah, it's a very modular synthesizer. It's oh my, I'm doing the wrong thing here. Turning the wrong dials. Happens to me also. So we have click mouse or right mouse menu. You also have presets. Sine wave. So this is now the volume envelope for, and it's synced on. You can have loop on. So yeah, options, tons of options. And of course, yeah, what I did in the other preset, using the XY to control the volumes. So there's so much to do on that subject in Bluetooth. There's one thing which Jamal discovered, which is brilliant. We always had fun with this preset on the on trade shows. Pull, let's see. Pull my finger, Jamal. Here it comes. A brilliant preset which he found out that there is a funny thing with Bluetooth. If you have a sample, in this case it's a bottle, and you do feedback on it, which he uses here. Feedback on oscillator A. Yeah, a deep blue one. So this is totally funny. So he did it here. You also can have here feedback. So feedback on the sample. So now it almost sounds like a, let's say, a trumpet player which has a bit too much beer or wine. Yeah, it's a terrible. And this is originally a bottle sound. So very strange what happens if you use the feedback. And of course the feedback is good for on the making this one dirty. Funny, isn't it, how this works? So we had many laughs with the Pull My Finger by Jamal. Okay, guys, so a bit of FM today. Put off the find and then going down here. The example presets. Yeah, here you got to find a bit more. 2 oscillators sync. Subtractive, 2 oscillators. Factor play. Oh yeah, definitely need bass. I told that on, by the way, that on Facebook while doing Facebook streaming. Okay, I'm doing all kind of weird clicks here. Here it is again. So this is here you can hear very nice how nice the bass is. So this is more wobble bass, but this bass here is then typically a FM bass, very tight. In fact, not typically, because this one I combine things together. So subtractive with a filter and some one. And we have, of course, the whole bank. And by the way, if you know the band Rush, band is a Canadian band, very famous, 70s, 80s, a rock, kind of symphonic rock type of thing. And they used a Bluetooth for their basses. And in the early time, they had these Moog Taurus basses on the on stage, but now they used Bluetooth as synthesizer. They for doing some good analog type of bass sounds, and it's because of the good filters, it does it very good. Very percussive. So this one's more mini type bass. Here it comes. That's because we added the regular waveform, square analog modeled waveform. So you have classic analog style basses, but also a lot of digital basses. The really punchy. And they stick in your music. They hear this expression. Of course, you can make it look a bit drier. Just put off the chorus. You hear my keyboard. So yeah, much possible. It's really the most versatile synthesizer which we have. Of course, with this, it comes with a user interface price, because if you want to have much features, you will have more pages. So you need to learn your time with Bluetooth. But once you get a grip on it, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, from this kind of sounds up to spacey sounds like this. An elephant, and sad elephant, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, an interview with John. Yeah, that would be a nice idea. I also have a plan to do an interview with Jamal, and yeah, that's a cool thing. And yeah, maybe it's cool to. I'm working together with John, of course, for a very long time. And if you see this here, it's a paper I found this week. And it's one of the first papers which we draw. I made a lineup for creating the first blue, which is in 2005. We started with that, and then yeah, it's we did it on paper, put this on it and that on it, and it's the first project we did together. And yeah, we took off from there. Okay, guys. We had a good night, a good evening, and a nice live stream, I think. Next week, we will be back again. We can talk about Bluetooth. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up down here, of course. And play around with Bluetooth. And if you run into something, next week we catch up with another live stream, and then you can ask some question. Maybe you want to ask how it works with the score mode, or how is this done, or what would be cool to do. So we'll do that. Okay, so one question: the filter envelopes are on the envelope step. Yes, yeah, indeed. The envelopes are all together. So each oscillators are appearing here, and then we have the envelopes down here. and the main volume, which is also up here. So this is a page which is most of the time, especially if you're doing some FM sounds or even classic synth sounds, this is the normal page which you would have default open. The other ones are the algorithm, how the oscillators are connected, phase distortion, wave shaping, the multi-envelope, the LFOs, many LFOs on board, the modulation matrix. Then there is a modulation sequencer, which is different from the normal sequencer, and an arpeggiator. But this is, of course, a page which you would have open all the time. So thank you guys for watching. Keep well, and hope to see you back next week.